Although the calendar has yet to reach March, there's still plenty of madness within college basketball, and it is upset city left and right happening right now. We're going to talk about that. And we're also going to talk about if the Edmonton Oilers tied the Pittsburgh Penguins for their record for longest winning streak in NHL hockey for most consecutive wins in a row. So stay tuned, guys. We've got plenty to talk about. I'm your host, Matthew Raridan, and this is Total Sports Talk Beyond the Lights. What's going on, everyone, and welcome to another installment of Total Sports Talk Beyond the Lights. Guys, I love this time of year. It's more of I love sports in general, where, yes, we are seeing one sport in with the NFL. You've got the Super Bowl happening right now, but there's so much sports still happening, but there's also a lot getting ready to start. I mean, we've got college baseball, college softball getting ready to start, golf right now. I mean, we're going to talk about this weekend, this Phoenix Open here. I mean, if you're a golf fan, this is probably the most fan loved event. And we're going to talk more specifically about that here. But it's just sports is always happening. It is just like the earth, it is always turning and it's never stopping. And I love that because I'm just such a big sports fan that I always have something to look forward to. And here we are Thursday that you're going to have the Phoenix opening start here. So it's just always happening and I'm loving it. I know you guys are too. But I'm going to introduce my hosts here who I know are also loving everything that's happening with sports right now. First, we've got David Street.
What's up, everybody?
And secondly, we've got Ed Smith.
Welcome, y'all.
Guys, I just want to get your quick input, your opinions here. I mean, isn't sports just amazing? It's just never stopping. And are you guys okay with that?
I'm totally okay with that.
I have made it through all the extended years of my life, despite whatever else is happening. Sports has kind of centered everything around it and, just keep moving along.
I once saw a tweet. Like it was a tweet about college football, but I think it can apply to sports in general. And it was right before the college football season started. I think it was last year, and the tweet said, "I'm about to let my college football team dictate my mood for an entire season."
Yeah. I mean,
And that rings true. Yeah, not just for college football, but for any sport, any team that we root for,
yeah.
Even when we like try to be calm, like we try to not like let it get to us. Deep down we know like, yeah, like I'm about to let a team dictate how I feel these days.
My lovely wife can attest to that. I mean, she knows how I could be, or just sports fans in general, and that just how much it could dictate on your life, just depending on how well they do or how crappy they do. I mean, you could be as happy as can be because your team's winning, or well, you could walk around with brown paper bags on your head like the Detroit Lions and Cleveland Browns once did. That's
Dude,
just life.
like literally, like the day after we lost FSU, that sealed our 5-7 fate. I had church the next day, and I was totally miserable. I did not want to be there at all. I didn't want to talk to anybody. Like, don't talk to me. My favorite football team just had a cruddy season.
Yeah, college football, and there's a reason why we love talking about college football because it's just one of those sports that it's got probably the most diehard fans. It's life or death to a lot of people, and that does sound very exaggerated. That's just kind of my point there is that you go down to the South, you go down to Texas where Ed is, and college football it is through and through. That's what they live, that's what they breathe down there. That's just their life right there. But there's college football is I don't want to say over. Yes, the season's over, but it's still happening. We did have National Signing Day today, but college basketball is living on right now. And yes, like I said earlier in the intro, it is not March, but that does not mean that there can't be upsets. And well, last night we actually saw an upset. I want to say we briefly talked about on our show, but Dave's going to take more a deep dive into this, and that was Clemson at North Carolina.
So yeah, guys, a major upset happened last night, and we did briefly talk about it during our show. But the Clemson Tigers went into Chapel Hill and defeated North Carolina. So Clemson is now a whopping 2-60 against the Heels in Chapel Hill. And excuse me, guys, this was a game that Clemson was actually in complete control of. They led wire to wire, and they were up by 16 at one point. They were powered by Ian Scheifele's 14 points, 11 rebounds. PJ Hall had 25 points and 9 boards, and Joseph Girard III had 21 points and 6 boards. And then to give credit to UNC, Armando Bacot and RJ Davis combined for 46 points. But as we talked about the other night, I'm not really worried about North Carolina. Like, they'll probably lose a couple more games in the regular season, but I think they're positioned well enough to at least get into the tournament. Now, when it comes to Clemson, I got to say, like, when you look at Clemson's resume, they actually have a few really good wins. I mean, Alabama, South Carolina. I mean, who would have thought? Like, who would have said that South Carolina is a good win before the season? But South Carolina's been killing it this season, so they got that win, and now they got North Carolina, and obviously, as we're speaking, they got the win in Chapel Hill, which is obviously going to be something that the selection committee looks at. I mean, if you can win on the road in a tough environment like that, then you definitely help your chances. Now Clemson does have a couple of bad losses. To be fair, but again, like, when I'm looking at the wins that they have, it's really hard to ignore the quantity of wins that they've gotten. And plus, it does help that they have a decent record. I think they're like, what, 15-7, 16-7. So they are having a pretty decent season. But yeah, just huge win for Clemson.
Yeah, David, it sounds like what I'm hearing here is Clemson is like the king of the Carolinas right now. I mean, they beat North Carolina, who beat Duke. They've also beat South Carolina. I mean, shoot, Clemson is the ruler of the Carolinas right now. So who would have thought? And it's not football we're talking about.
For sure, yeah.
Who'd have thunk it?
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. But yeah, I mean that is a great win for this program, especially like you said, 2-60 at Chapel Hill. That is not pretty. That just shows you almost every single time they are going in there, it's almost a guaranteed loss.
And like I said, they led wire to wire, and they were up by 16 at one point. That is
Mhm.
absolutely insane to do, especially in an environment that is a sort of God, what's the term I'm looking for? The term where it's like House of Horrors, a place that's basically been a house of horrors for you.
Yeah, no, it is very impressive, and that's the thing about college basketball. It can be very unpredictable, but I agree with you. This North Carolina team, they're a team that is going to be around, obviously, probably till the very end. But unpredictable is what college basketball is at its finest, and last night was one of them with that Clemson victory. But last night we also had the number one team in the country right now face off against Butler, who just had an upset victory over a ranked opponent in Creighton. So, Ed, how'd that performance go for Butler?
Well, you talked about college basketball being unpredictable. The most predictable thing right now is UConn is going to uh, be very consistent, very balanced, and just dominate who they're playing. I mean, it's very simple. Butler actually came into this game averaging 81 points per game. They only scored 62. So that's a great defensive effort by UConn. But UConn, on the offensive end, they finally got Donovan Clingan into the offense, after his injuries, after a couple of games where he was in foul trouble, trying to get back from his injury. They really were able to play inside out, for most of the game. And, you know, just dominated this game. This is a UConn team that hasn't lost since 5 days before Christmas. We're in February. That is a great stretch for a team when there's so much parity around them. They are really showing themselves to be head and shoulders above everybody else. I talked about Klingon. He had a double double, 18 points, 14 boards. I mean, he was all over the place and really dished well. With the different sets that UConn runs, and when they needed a big three to really seize the momentum, Cam Spencer was the guy. He was 4 of 8 from behind the arc, and whenever it splashed down, that arena went nuts, and for good reason. This is a team that you look at some of these upsets that are happening around the top 5 and top 10. UConn seems impervious to it at this point. Go ahead. You were saying?
No, you can finish your point, and then I have a question for you.
Oh, I was just going to point out that UConn shot 47% last night, 35% behind the arc. Those are winning numbers. I talked about Butler having, scored a lot of points, but they were held to 37% shooting and only 22% behind the arc. That is not going to get it done, against a team that is just rolling right now. David, what's your question?
Yeah, so and actually, I think I'll address it to both of you. But like, why do you guys think? Why do you guys think the UConn men's team is like so underrated every single season? I mean, certainly they don't get nearly as much love as the women's team, and like nobody really talks about them until we go into March. But the men's team, I think, has like what 5 national championships. So like they're up there, among the most national championships for programs, and yet they barely ever get talked about. Why is that?
I think the Big East plays a big part of it at this point, you know, because it's a conference that, disbanded football, so nobody talks about it being a conference in and of itself. It is purely basketball driven, in the national spotlight, and which means that for the most part, only people in the Northeast really care. So
Mhm.
uh, that's going to be a thing where you're not going to have people talk about them nationwide because only a quarter of the surface area of the United States is even looking at this team.
Yeah, for sure. And I think just to add to your point, and then I'll get to you, Matthew. I mean, Villanova's in the Big East, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so to kind of piggyback off of your point, like I remember something similar happening. It was the 2017 2018 season, I believe, where everybody was talking about like, well, who's the best team? Like, no one's like really standing out. And then here was Villanova just quietly dominating teams. And then when March came, when all the teams are talked about, Villanova just kind of reminded everybody that they were the best team from start to finish. Because if you guys remember that tournament run in 2018, they just straight up murdered everybody in their path. Like it was one of the most dominant runs in tournament history. Matthew?
Yeah, I mean, Jay Wright really made Villanova relevant. And Villanova is a very small private college in Philadelphia, if I'm correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so their market's already small, but the Big East right now, their market alone is just it's not as big as what we're hearing. And UConn, they're not having these stars, quote unquote stars like the Zach Eady's or the Hunter Dickinsons that are constantly now getting the spotlight because they play for these bigger market schools such as Kansas, Purdue, and a lot of these are you're looking at Alabama. I mean, Alabama last year with Brandon Miller, it's one thing to have their juggernaut of the football team that's always doing great. Now their basketball team's doing that too. So they're just constantly getting looked at more. And you're right, UConn is constantly kind of getting swept under the rug, and they quietly won the tournament last year. And look at them now. They are piggybacking off of that momentum into this year. And to have their last loss, did you say 5 days before Christmas, Ed? I mean, that's phenomenal right now to have that type of run. And kudos to their program with what they're doing there.
So I have a
Absolutely.
question for both of you guys when it comes to UConn. Who is their rival?
Uh,
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's my
I
point.
mean, maybe
Because
Villanova.
profile of a program is raised by the rivalry that they have with other schools. So when you see that hate from one school to another, like you see with UNC and Duke,
Yeah.
Part of their identity is that rivalry.
Mhm.
UConn does not have that kind of identity because we can't tell who their rival actually is.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Never thought of it like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of goes also to their market as well. Is that maybe if they had a bigger market, you would know who their rival is. So, yeah, that's a good point, Ed. But we also saw as well Oklahoma State and Houston, and guys, this is a Houston team that we expect to see on a regular basis, not the one that we saw Saturday against the Jayhawks. Last night, we saw the actual Cougars team as they defeated the OSU Cowboys 79-63. And this was such a great refresher for the Cougs because after a 13-point blowout loss to Kansas this last weekend, I know OSU is not a ranked opponent. I know I say OSU, don't get it confused, Ohio State, Oklahoma State. This was a game where you got to see a team, what they're really made of, because when you have such a big loss like that, like they did against Kansas, you don't know really how they're going to come out this game. And, unlike the 69% they gave up from the field against Kansas, they only gave up a measly 40% to the Cowboys. I mean, the Cowboys really struggled from the field. I mean, only having 40%. I mean, that's almost a 30% turnaround when you look at that. 69% from Kansas, how they shot, to 40% for Oklahoma State. That is a giant turnaround. And now you're starting to see this Houston defense that they are known for, because having a game like that where you're holding your opponents to that low just really shows what you can do as a team, especially coming off that loss there. But they had a 20-point lead, but this is one point that I really want to talk about, is they had a 20-point lead at this point, but you saw kind of a little spark in this team when you saw head coach Kelvin Sampson was ejected from the game after he stormed the court to call out the officials for these blatant no calls that they had. I mean, I don't know if you saw this happen, how as it unfolded, but yes, they were up by 20 points, but there was clear, obvious fouls that the ref just weren't calling. And it doesn't matter if your team is up by 20 or if they're up by 1. Those are calls that should be made, and Sampson really felt that way too. Interesting enough, this is Sampson's first ever ejection in the 10 years that he's coached there in Houston. So, I mean, it just shows you that something really got under his skin for him to run out on the court, even though his team was up by 20 points, to really tell the refs, you are doing really crappy at your job. And I know I'm going to get fined for this, but you guys are doing horrible tonight. And I expect you to be better, not for me, but for these players. It's only fair that if these refs are on their best game every single game, because, I mean, these are players that we're talking about that are, giving their lives on the court here to eventually make it somewhere. So I really feel like that was the spark that this team needed, because not just for this game, but for this season, that goes a long way. When you have a coach that's going to go out on the court and fight for you, that shows you what kind of coach you have. And nothing gets a team more fired up than that. I mean, we saw that. I've talked about it on here before. The Detroit Lions and Dan Campbell. You saw the fire Dan Campbell had for his team And well, they gave it to him right back because it was such a mutual respect. But that's what I see here with that Kelvin Sampson ejection there. First time in 10 years. This is something that does not happen almost ever. So the fact that he did that for his guys out there, I think this Houston team, even though they got blown out against Kansas, they're going to be a team to keep an eye on for the rest of this year going into March. But as far as college basketball goes, I mean, that's kind of our recap. But we did give a recap of the weekend, which it was such a monster weekend. But we having this upset last night with North Carolina, and then just to talk about UConn with the greatness that they are doing on the court right now, it deserves to be talked about. They should not be. Underrated because they are a great basketball program and they have been for quite some time. So they deserve to have this talk. But before we go on to this next topic, guys, I want to talk about quirks of creation. The universe is bigger than we ever dreamed, and history is stranger than we've ever realized. But from quantum mechanics to the wonder of pyramids, Quirks of Creation is a podcast that looks at the mysterious from all corners of God's mysterious universe. Tune in with Jess and Elise for a conversation about culture, biblical texts, scientific discoveries, and more to uncover where we've been and where we might be headed. You can find them on YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, or on AmericanDailyPress.com. So go ahead, like and subscribe, and follow Quirks of Creation. Things are going to get It's going to be like Weird Science. It's going to be like Robert Downey Jr. and Weird Science. It gets weird, but it's awesome. Go ahead, check them out. Quirks of Creation, guys. But I really want to talk about hockey last night. I don't want to spoil anything, but there may or may not be a reason why I'm wearing this Penguins jersey. David, you want to maybe cue the fans on what I'm talking about here?
So if you follow hockey, then you know that the Oilers have been on this incredible winning streak, so incredible that they were that they needed just one more win to tie the all-time win streak record, which was set by the Pittsburgh Penguins in the early '90s. And did they do it? No, they did not do it. So we know you're happy about it, Matthew. But listen, kudos to it's an insane winning streak, regardless. I mean, the last time a team won 16 straight games was the Columbus Blue Jackets back in the late 2010s. So kudos to them for still, winning that many games. But how did this happen? Well, it's actually really easy to tell, guys, because here's the thing. If you're going to go up if you're going up against a defensive minded team like the Vegas Golden Knights and you don't prepare accordingly, you're likely going to have a very bad time. So, the Golden Knights, they are third in the NHL in takeaways. In this game, they had 12 takeaways compared to the Oilers' 2 takeaways. The Golden Knights are also third in the NHL in block shots. In this game, the Golden Knights had 26 block shots compared to 17 block shots for the Oilers. And let me just paint you a picture of just how defensive minded the Golden are. Okay, I'm going to give you some. I'm going to give you some numbers here. These are the block shots from non-defensemen. So I'm going to start with the Oilers first. 2 block shots from non-defensemen from the Vegas Golden Knights. 13. So that's 13 compared to 2. So in case you ever wonder like why the Golden Knights are always winning, like why they're always so good, well, it's because they have dedicated themselves to sacrificing their bodies, because defense is ultimately the mindset that leads to championships. And Matthew, I think you and I both know just how important defense is. Like, I remember when the Penguins won back-to-back cups, especially in the Stanley Cup Finals against the San Jose Sharks, and the Penguins players were just like blocking everything in sight. And then same thing for my Lightning when we won back-to-back cups a few years later. When we were like all offense, all gas, and then we finally realized, well, we probably need to play defense, and it was that mindset that led to us winning championships. So that's just and that's why Vegas is so good. It's because they are a defensive first team, and that defensive first mentality is why they snapped the Oilers' 16-game winning streak.
Yeah, I mean, kudos to the Oilers. I mean, the way they started out the season, as we talked about on yesterday's show, I think losing 12 of their first 13, their season couldn't start out any worse than it did. But to have this incredible streak to really even propel them back into where they are in the current rankings is amazing. But 16 wins in a row in hockey is tremendous. So kudos to them, what they're doing there. But yes, my Penguins from the 92-93 season are still rejoicing. Maybe if the Oilers had such an amazing mullet, maybe they could have pulled this one out. I mean, I think maybe that's the key to success, but I don't want them to know that. So hopefully they don't hear that. But I mean, their streak did end, but that is still a tremendous feat that needs to be talked about, even
Yeah,
if they didn't tie it.
and one of the things that when I was watching that game last night, uh, that was talked about, defense turns into offense. It doesn't matter what sport we're talking about. So Edmonton in 13 of the 14 games that they had won in a row, they had allowed 2 or fewer goals. That's winning hockey. Because if you can keep the other team back and you've got one of the baddest goal scorers on the planet on your side, you're probably going to do pretty well. It's just the Golden Knights, they showed them how defense is done, and that's because that's the identity of that team. And the fact that they were able to break through to a 3-goal lead because, in the third period, because that second period, that was, a tough period. It remained, uh, the Golden Knights actually tied very early in that period. And then, for the rest of that period, it was very tough minded, very defensive minded on both sides of the ice. So, the Golden Knights getting through to 3 just kind of took the sails out of the Oilers in that third period. And that's how we wound up where we are now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean that's a great point. Ed is you've always heard the saying defense wins championships, and defense is so important. I mean, think of in the MLB, you have a pitcher who throws a no hitter. Usually, for the most part, it's that team that wins the game. I mean, your pitcher just threw a new no hitter, right? So you would hope that at least some of your guys on offense would at least hit maybe a home run or just something to get some runs in because well, your pitcher has had, you could consider that defense has really had the team on his back. Well, the same could be said, like Ed said, in any sport where you have a great stout defense. It's bound to give your offense more possessions, more chances to eventually score and up the score itself. So yeah, defense
Yeah,
is important.
yeah, and like just like beyond simply playing a better team, we should also talk about the fact that obviously this win streak had to put a lot of pressure on the Oilers' shoulders. I mean, like when people, I mean, because I promise you, like they may claim they don't talk about it or whatever, but I promise you, those guys hear what people are saying. They hear what members of the media are saying when they say things like, "Oh, like the Oilers need just one more win to tie the all-time record." Like you don't think they think about that. You don't think it weighs on them. It definitely weighs on them. But also in a way, I would argue that losing could actually end up being a good thing for them because now, and not that they weren't focusing on it before, but now they can really put all their focus on what matters the most, and that is making the playoffs. And they don't have to talk about this winning streak anymore.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And speaking of the media has been pretty, on top of this next game, and more importantly, this trade that happened right at the trade deadline in the NHL, and that is Elias Lindholm, who is now a member of the Vancouver Canucks. And guys, quite the debut game for him in his with his new team. I mean, he showed them why he was worth every bit of that first round pick that they gave up to acquire him at the deadline. I mean, Lindholm scored the first 2 goals for the Canucks in this game against the Carolina Hurricanes, and I mean that was important. They end up winning the game 3-2, but scoring those first two goals really sets kind of the par, sets the momentum for this team, especially when you just had this is a new guy. I mean, to have the chemistry, that is something that you have to practice, you have to work on for a while, because it's not easy going into a new team. There is a lot of differences in regards to that, no matter what the sport is. So the fact that he put up two quick goals for the Canucks is impressive. And I mean, the Canucks, they are now sit atop of the NHL. I'm sure things could change as we're speaking right now, but they are atop with 73 points. The Canes, on the other hand, dropped down to 4 points behind the Metropolitan leading Rangers. And that does now change because the Rangers, as of now, just beat the Tampa Bay Lightning, which puts them up even more. But that could be a critical matchup down the stretch. Although the game was on the road for the Canucks, I think the home crowd for them is going to have a lot to really root for once they get back on their home ice. But this is after their team's longest road stretch of the season, where they play 5 straight games on the road. I mean, guys, what a way to start the second half of the season, right after the All-Star break. You're going to be on the road 5 straight games, and that's not an easy task. So the home crowd, they're going to be anxious to see Lindholm on the ice, and this is a Canucks team who is now atop of the entire West over here. And so I think that's something to keep an eye on. Just if they could continue to do that. We did talk about that yesterday with our predictions on who eventually is going to win this out, and maybe get the President's Trophy. And right now it could be the Canucks. So we still got a bit to go. But Lindholm, what an amazing debut for him, as 2 goals right off the back. So guys, I mean, I don't know if you guys caught any of the game, but I think that's a pretty impressive debut for a new team. Really quick before we hop on this next topic, I wanted to see if you guys caught this today. Did you guys see that Tony Pollard? He was on Pat McAfee today, and he said he quit social media. You know, he's a cowboy. It's kind of tough out there. I don't blame him, but he quit social media. He found out today on Pat McAfee's show that Dan Quinn was no longer defensive coordinator for his Dallas Cowboys. How the heck do you not know that? You play on that team. I found that really shocking that he had just found out. And it's been how many days? I mean, we covered it, I'm pretty sure, last week. So that's maybe, I'll give him benefit of the doubt, 5-6 days. But that's pretty shocking to me.
Well, let me just say,
Go ahead, David.
I think we can all probably agree that it's probably a good thing that he's not on social media.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh yeah. Well, and he's offense. Dan Quinn's defense. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about defense. He only cares about what his offensive coaches want out of him. So I kind of get it, but your point is very well taken. There's no reason that you shouldn't know who your coaches are on your team.
I mean, I was starting to think maybe he was taking a little spiritual ayahuasca retreat with Aaron Rodgers and just had no communication with the outside world. So it was still
embrace the darkness
to be determined. But speaking about Joshua Tree, ayahuasca desert, there is a tournament happening in Phoenix this weekend. That is a PGA Tour. And Ed, I just want you to take this away because this is actually an amazing fan event, PGA Tour event here.
This is the tour stop that is 100% about the fans. When you have all your major events. You're basically 5 majors, but 4 really count. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
But this event this weekend in Phoenix happens every year on Super Bowl weekend. So the final round ends about the time that kickoff is happening for the Super Bowl. And it is truly about the fans because it is the most attended golf event in the world. You're talking 150 to 200,000 people per day going to watch a golf tournament. that is nuts. And not to mention how many people are there, it is how they act when they get there. Because, woo, that, half the fun of watching this event, on television, which, for those of us that actually do watch golf on television, you know, you want to turn into the Phoenix Open, because the players are half the story, because you're going to see some fans out there do some kind of fun stuff. Uh, and yes, they try and turn away and not show people be idiots on television, but it's happening out there. And it starts from when they open the gates at 7 a.m. People have already been camping for hours to get into the grandstands, because this is a cult a course in which it's basically a stadium atmosphere, you know, and the main focus on it is hole 16. It is nicknamed the Coliseum because there are grandstands on three sides. It is 3 stories tall, and when you hear how much alcohol has been consumed by the people that go into this tournament, you'll get it here. Guys, what would you expect as a just guesstimate of how much alcohol 150 to 200,000 people can consume over a 4-day event?
I mean, I don't. I mean, it's crazy because Arizona State down there is quite the party school, and I'm sure a lot of their frats are going to be there. But I, I don't know. Maybe 1 million, 2 million type of drinks.
Last year, they sold over 4.6 million alcoholic beverages last year. And it culminated in a streaker in a Speedo running out onto hole 16, pole dancing with the flag, then juking a security guard, running through the tunnel to get to hole 17, down the fairway, down past everything, with security chasing the entire way, and dive straight into the lake. I don't know how much you have to consume to have that idea that would be fun to do, because I can just imagine how much time he actually spent in the clink for that disorderly conduct. But that's just one example. But the whole idea of this weekend itself is about the fans just enjoying themselves, enjoying golf. It can be a fun sport. It is really the Happy Gilmore of the tournament on the tour. I mean, it's not very well accepted by all the golfers that are out there. You think Shooter McGavin versus Happy Gilmore, go back to your shanties. This is golf, you people.
Yeah.
The beach balls, and the signs, and
The funnel.
just the completely diverse crowd out there just enjoying themselves. And maybe there's a little golf. It's it's all fun and games, and it's really something that I'd like to see in more sports where they have a fan focused uh, event like this on their schedule every single year, because for a sport that has this stuffy air about it, like golf or tennis, or in pickleball, if you want to pick a lower club sport, they rarely have events like this that they embrace as a sport, that fan focused weekend. And David, uh, you know what do you have you seen any of these antics happen when you've seen this tournament on television?
You mean like when it comes to alcohol and all that?
just the rowdiness and the raucousness of, anytime somebody swings a club, it just explodes with excitement.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, definitely. I have seen that before, and it is like it is crazy, especially like during a golf event like that where it can be relatively quiet for obvious reasons. But anytime something big happens at the swing of a club or whatever, then like everybody erupts in excitement. It's like the best thing that they've ever seen.
Yeah, it's one of those things that could give you chills if you're like a college football fan. And you're loud, you're rowdy, but you're trying to get into golf. This is the event to really start watching because golf is quiet. Not this
Who
event.
was that? Who was that one dude? Like it happened at a recent golf tournament. Um, I believe it was his first ever major golf tournament. Although don't quote me on that. But he had a hole in one, and it was like the story of the tournament. Do you guys remember who I'm talking about?
Tiger Woods.
Not Tiger Woods, although obviously he had a lot of hole in ones. But it happened recently, man. It happened like probably half a year ago or so. He was the story of the tournament. He had a hole in one, and everybody was talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say I kind of know who you're talking about because it's been a golfer that's actually won several tournaments, and it was like his first ace on one of them. So
Oh wow.
I'm drawing a blank on who it might have been right now, but uh, I know Ed said Tiger Woods kind of sarcastically, but that's probably if you look up that Tiger Woods ace at this tournament, it's probably the most famous video of this tournament because Tiger Woods, being pretty much uh, the the granddaddy of them all when it comes to golf. He is who is talked about the most. To see him, hit a hole in one at this tournament it's already crazy enough. So that if you haven't seen that video, I urge you to look that up or even look up the video Ed was talking about. It's like watching Blue Mountain State, but on the golf course.
I
And
just
there
look. I
was
just
the
look.
golfer a few years ago that took his shirt off and started woohooing, after a par. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just have fun, and that's one of the things that you see. The stuffiness of golf, detract people from getting into it. But like you said, Matthew, college football fans, if you ever want to get into golf, watch this tournament.
I just looked. By the way, and I think I found the answer. Does the name Michael Block ring a bell to you guys?
It does not to me, at least.
Uh,
Okay.
no.
It was the 2023 PGA Championship, and he hit this insane hole in one, and like it became the story of the whole tournament. But
Yeah,
Okay.
no, it's something I'll definitely have
Oh,
to.
that's the one where he dunked it.
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
he,
Yeah,
that one.
yeah, he dunked that one. That wasn't at this tour though. At this tour stop.
right, but if
Yeah.
it does happen here, you already know the roof is gonna
Oh,
it's gonna be blowing off. So,
absolutely,
but
absolutely.
the previous winners here that we have seen over the last couple of years, and honestly, we have a back-to-back champ the last 2 years, and that's the number one golfer in the world right now, Scotty Scheffler. He's going to be on the odds-on heavy favorite actually going into this tournament, and rightfully so. I mean, not only is he the back-to-back winner, he is also the number one ranked golf in the whole world right now. If you haven't watched this guy play golf, it is actually quite a sight to see. But before that, you had the 2021 winner, which was Brooks Koepka. And he's made his way over to the Live Golf Tour. So I think it's probably safe to say he's not going to win this tournament. But it, there's been a lot of great champions at this tournament, and a lot of great runner ups. Scotty Scheffler 2 years ago won in a playoff on the third hole. I mean, it gets crazy, and anytime he gets into a playoff, that is when the fans itself are so laser focused, and it is always fun to see. But guys, I'm interested to hear your guys' predictions on who's going to win this year. I just told you that Scotty Scheffler is the odds-on favorite. He is not who I have. winning. I guess I'll go ahead and start with my prediction. For my prediction, I have Max Homa going to win this. Number 8 golfer in the world right now. There's just something about him that tells me, it's just kind of my gut feeling here that he's going to win this tournament this year. And this is before I even looked at any of the odds. This was just something that I felt like he was going to win. But I want to say a lot of Vegas are backing him right now, as I think he is the number 3 favorite to win this tournament right now, if not number 2. So he's right there behind Scotty Scheffler. But your guys, I'd like to hear your predictions.
As somebody who isn't really that much into golf, but is trying to get more into it, I'm just gonna go with the dude who has the most badass name in the tournament, and that's Wyndham Clark. As soon as I saw his name, I'm like, okay, that's him. That's the guy that I'm taking to win the whole thing.
That actually is a pretty good pick, David. I think you can't really go wrong with having a pick like him. I mean, he's a part of the feature group actually starting tomorrow. And if you have ESPN Plus, maybe on some other platforms, go ahead and check that out. That's going to be a good feature group.
And Wyndham Clark just got off of winning the Pebble Beach Pro-Am,
Yeah.
which is one of the toughest golf courses in the world.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So,
absolutely. Right on the coast, right there.
So this is going to be absolutely. It's hard to say easier course, but definitely not as wind whipping a course as what you'll find in Pebble Beach. To your point, Matthew, Max Homa is a number 4 power ranked by PGA right now. So that's a great pick for you. It's hard to say that somebody's going to three-peat like Scotty Scheffler.
Yeah.
But all signs seem to point to Justin Thomas because he is neck and neck with Scheffler as far as players that are just on top of their game right now. And if I were to throw out a dark horse, I would put Spieth out there simply because this is a player that shot his low round on the tour on this course. So if he can put it all together like he did that magical day that he shot a 61 on this course, he's going to make it very interesting for Thomas, Scheffler, Homa, Clark, all these guys that we're all expecting to be there right at the end of this weekend.
Just off the top of our heads, like, has there been any professional team / professional athlete here in the States that's three-peated? Because I can't think of any. In fact, the only professional team I can think of that's three-peated is Manchester City, but they're not even an American team. Like here in America, I can't think of anybody.
The Bulls have 2 3-peats.
Well, I mean recently.
Oh, sorry, recently.
Yeah.
I couldn't quite tell you actually right now at the top of my head. Who?
Not since Minnesota in the 40s.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough thing to do, but I do want to put this point out there. You think of Phoenix, you think of sun. Well, actually, it is going to be raining on the first day or 2 there, so that could be implication on who can actually win this thing. But I'm glad you said Justin Thomas because that's who the odds are. They have Justin Thomas at 2, then I think Max Homa at 3, but they do have Spieth up there too. So it sounds like Vegas has their guys that they're really putting money behind right now, and it's those 4. So also another point to point out is Xander Schauffele did drop out of this event, as well as is it Hovland, I believe, and those are 2 of the top golfers in the world too. So, but there is some rumors on one of them could possibly go into Live, and that might have been why they dropped out. So those are just rumors right now. As we saw, John Ram has brought his team over to Live, and it's causing a lot of stir right now. So that's something to keep an eye out. But this tournament, guys, is something that you need to watch. If it's something to get you pumped going into the Super Bowl, where no one wants any team to win, this tournament right here will do it for you. It'll give you that kind of momentum that you're looking for. But going on to a sport that's not happening right now. That's MLB. I know spring training will be here before we know it, but we have a big signing, and I know Ed's particularly happy about this signing. Ed,
Yep. We have signed an extension, and I say we because I am a Houston Astros fan. Uh, and the Astros just signed another 5-year extension for Jose Altuve to have him play until he's 39 in Houston. It's a 5-year, $125 million deal, and he's going to be a lifetime Astro. As an Astros fan, there's nothing that we could want more, than to have our guy, just stay with us, not be one of these guys that kind of hang on at another location. This is a guy that has really defined uh, the Astros, and been the face of the Astros since he came into the league in 2011. So this is going to be year 13. You know, he's going to be on for another 6 years. So that is a long time being a Houston Astro, but it's still going to wind up being second to Craig Biggio, the Hall of Famer, who also played second base. We just have good luck with them, I guess. I don't know.
Hey Ed, real
Yeah.
quick, what trash can did Altuve sign the contract on?
Rubbermaid.
oh yeah, that's a legit contract right there.
Yeah, because it was a little quieter, than the
I'm just
steel
messing
cans.
with you.
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
messing with you, my friend.
David took it away from me. I was going to say something similar, but Altuve.
He, after signing it, he ripped his shirt off and showed that there's no wire.
There's no wire. Yep. yeah. Altuve's defied a lot of odds, and he is a fun player to watch. Me being not the tallest guy out there either, to see someone like him have the success he has in the majors is incredible. So that is nice to watch, and I'm sure Ed may be saying this next, but I did see a report that Bregman is going to be next for this extension. They want to make him an Astro for life as well.
Yes, Bregman and Framber Valdez, now they get to work on those contracts because they're set to be free agents in 2 years, whereas Altuve was going to be a free agent after this upcoming year.
Yep. So get those extensions out of the way. But speaking about a lifer, guy who's been around for a long time with one team, notorious for choking in the playoffs. Yes, Mom, I said it. Clayton Kershaw.
Yeah, so the Dodgers have signed Kershaw to a 1-year extension. And guys, I think this is a very easy perspective because Kershaw is old for a baseball player. He's 35, 36 years old. So I think from the Dodgers perspective, they look at it as, okay, well, you're at a point where we can't really give you these mega deals anymore because at this point that would just be horrific business. But we want you to be a Dodger for life, so we're just going to keep turning out these 1-year contracts for you every single year. I think it's just as simple as that.
Yeah, Kershaw is like the Fitz magic, the Ryan Fitzpatrick of baseball. Yes, Fitzpatrick did bounce around from team to team, but Kershaw being on one team, this is the second year in a row that he's had this free agency where no one really wants to give him that deal because he's older. So the Dodgers are like, all right, we'll bring you back. All right, just come back. You're a journeyman. If we make the playoffs, maybe this time we'll bench you, but then we'll decide we'll start you game one and then we'll lose. But it's just he's been around for a while, and I mean I like to see the move because I like seeing players that are with one team their entire career. It's just really nice to see. And Kershaw's a Dodger. He'll always be a Dodger unless he's a Montana who decides that he wants to go to the Cardinals or something, for his last year. It's like, what? Come on. So the Kershaw going back Dodgers is a really smart move and a 1-year deal. Maybe let him announce that it could be his last year and let him do his farewell tour like we've seen with all the greats.
Absolutely. And what you say that he's old for a baseball player. He's no Justin Verlander.
Yeah.
You know, he's hasn't been as durable as Verlander has. You know, over the past 5 years. You know,
Hmm.
in the last 5 years, Verlander's over 40 at this point.
Yeah,
And he's still out there. Pumping gas through
Yeah.
the strike zone.
Yeah.
But
that no, that is
his,
that is definitely that is definitely a good point. I mean, like there are pitchers out there who can pitch into their old age. Like I remember Roy Halladay, may he rest in peace. If I remember correctly, he was still a starting pitcher, in his 40s.
I know Ed's gonna say it, but Nolan Ryan.
oh yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah.
and not to mention Zach Greinke.
hmm Yeah, Zach Greinke, the EFIS, the famous
It
EFIS.
is. It is so. I really don't know why. I can't explain this, but it is so hard to believe that Zach Greinke is old now. Like I just cannot picture him as an old guy. I don't know why.
Yeah, I mean,
He's just a quirky guy. Maybe Quirky Creation can talk about
Yeah.
him.
I'll,
Well,
I'll
it's like, yeah. Let me just say this one thing real quick. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but what's really incredible about Zach Greinke is that the dude actually suffers severe social anxiety. Like he hates being around people, and the fact that he was such a dominant pitcher for so long, despite dealing with severe social anxiety, is just really really incredible.
Yeah, I mean that's actually a great point there. I mean, given that recognition, just like George Springer, who Ed knows great as well. I mean, he has a stutter. What he's how comfortable he's become on these interviews and being more aware about it is also a really great thing to see within sports because we're all human at the end of the day, and life is greater than any of us could really explain. But Zach Greinke been around for a while. I'll always remember the days where he was at the Royals, and it seemed like him and Kershaw were winning Cy Youngs every year. Tim Lincecum. It was just such a great batch of pitchers that every single year you saw their name on the Cy Young finalists. And Zach Greinke is an amazing pitcher, and so is Clayton Kershaw. So Kershaw, if it's ever time to hang it up, do it, and you'll always be a Dodger. You'll always be a phenomenal pitcher to me. But that's about all we have today, folks. So I urge you go ahead, look up some videos, and tune into this Phoenix Open. I feel like you will be very happy that you did so. It's something that is different. You think of golf, you think of just quiet, or you're taking a nap on a Saturday or something. But it's actually very fun to watch. So go ahead and check that out. And
I will say on that, if you're watching the Phoenix Open on television, keep your Twitter open and watch for updates that go across Twitter from the Phoenix Open because I'm sure there's going to be something on there that the cameras will not show you.
Absolutely, it's like when when a streaker comes on any pro sports, they will not show it. So, but there'll always be someone who has their phone out that will update you on it. So, go ahead, check out that feed. Ed is exactly right. So, go ahead and do that and give us a like, subscribe, share these videos, and drop in the comments your predictions for. Just the next big signings for the MLB. There are still a lot of great free agents out there, and who you think is going to win this Phoenix Open. We really like to hear what you have to say. But until next time, guys, we are rounding third, and we are headed for home.